In 1922, the Hinterkaifeck farm sat in near total isolation from the rest of Germany. 6 people lived here, anchored by a predictable, self-sufficient routine that rarely changed from one season to the next. That routine broke when the farmer discovered something he couldn't explain: a line of fresh footprints in the deep snow, leading from the woods directly toward the house. He followed them, but the tracks only went one way. They ended at the door. In the vast white landscape surrounding the property, there were no return tracks leading back to the trees. The physical boundary of the farm had been crossed. Someone had walked onto the property, and as far as the snow could tell, they were still there. The very thing that made the farm peaceful, its extreme distance from the rest of the world, now made it a trap. There was no one close enough to see what was happening. Inside the house, the family began finding things they didn't recognize. A copy of the Vossische Zeitung newspaper appeared on the table, a paper from the city that no one in the house had bought. Within days, the family's own home seemed to be turning against them. Keys to the heavy doors went missing without a reason, leaving the family essentially locked out of their own storage and living spaces. At night, the farmer heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps coming from the attic, creaking directly over the rooms where the family slept. He searched the house. He checked the rafters, the corners, and the closets, but he found nothing but empty space. He was left with a terrifying contradiction. The evidence told him a stranger was inside the house, but his eyes told him he was alone. To understand how the family was lost, you have to look at how the farm was built. The main house and the barn were separate structures, divided by a small but critical stretch of open ground. When the violence began, it didn't start in the beds or at the dinner table. One by one, all 6 family members, including the 2 young children, were drawn out of the house and into the barn. Once they stepped into the darkness of the outbuilding, they were separated and struck down. Because they arrived individually, they were never able to mount a defense. The distance between the buildings, combined with the dense walls of the barn, acted as a muffler. The family remaining in the house heard nothing. By the time the night was over, the house was empty and the barn was filled with the bodies of the victims. The killer had used the farm's own geography to divide the family, turning their workplace into a lethal, inescapable trap. After the murders were over, the most disturbing part of the mystery began. The intruder did not flee into the night. For days after the family died, neighbors saw smoke rising from the chimney. From a distance, the farm looked like it was operating as usual. Inside, the killer was living. They fed the cattle in the barn, fired up the kitchen stove, and cooked and ate meals. For an entire weekend, a stranger slept in the family's beds and ate their food, all while the bodies of the victims lay just a few yards away. This behavior points to a motive that went beyond simple violence. For a brief window of time, the killer didn't just take the family's lives. They stepped into their roles and inhabited their home. Then, after days of playing house, the intruders simply vanished. They left the property exactly as they had found it, leaving no name and no trace. Over a century of investigation has followed, but the identity of the person who hid in that attic remains a blank space in history. The Hinterkaifeck mystery endures because it realizes a primal fear, the idea that the most terrifying thing isn't the person who breaks into your house, but the person who decides to stay.